Colombia is very sick too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States, and he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
What does that mean? He's not going to be doing it very long.
He's not doing it very long. He has cocaine mills and cocaine factories. He's not going to be doing it very long.
So there will be an operation by the U.S. and
It sounds good to me.
Secretary Rubio mentioned
You know why?
Cuba
Because they kill a lot of people, yeah.
Secretary Rubio mentioned Cuba yesterday in his remarks. Does the U.S. have a plan to do something?
Well, Cuba always survived because of Venezuela. Now they won't have that money coming in. They won't have the income coming in. You know, a lot of Cubans were killed yesterday. You know that. A lot of Cubans were killed.
Do you know how many?
The bodyguards. No, they're looking. But there was a lot of death on the other side. No death on our side. But there was a lot of death on the other side, unfortunately. But a lot of Cubans were killed yesterday, trying to protect him.
There's been protesters killed in Iran. You said we were locked and loaded, ready to go. What is the line there for when the U.S. is going to get involved in those protests?
We'll take a look. We're watching it very closely. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States.
Can I just add something? So when he first got elected in January, we met, biggest comeback ever. We talked about
you think so, really? I didn't feel it was a comeback, actually.
So
because the first one was.
The bottom line is, we talked about a drug caliphate in our backyard. We had Venezuela, we have Cuba, we have Colombia in our backyard, and these three countries have been condemned ever since I've been in politics. Joe Biden put a $25 billion bounty on Maduro's head. Chris Smith, today he got inaugurated, said, I hope Trump will hold Maduro's feet to the fire. You did. So what has he done? He's going to clear our backyard of a drug caliphate, countries run by narco-terrorist dictators who murder, rape, send drugs into our country to kill thousands of our citizens. To my Democratic friends, you should be celebrating this. When bin Laden went down, I was the first to applaud President Obama. This was one of the most sophisticated military operations in the history of the country. What they were able to do was amazing. They knew we were coming. We had a good part of the Navy, and they were able to capture this man alive. No military in the world could have done it. And as to this commander-in-chief, he did something people talked about doing. You just wait for Cuba. Cuba is a communist dictatorship that's killed priests and nuns. They've preyed on their own people. Their days are numbered. We're going to wake up one day, I hope in 26, in our backyard, we're going to have allies in these countries doing business with America, not narco-terrorist dictators killing Americans. This is a big frigging day. And everybody in the world is thinking differently than they were just a few days ago because of what you did.
By the way, you mentioned something that's interesting. Lindsay mentioned bin Laden. I wrote about bin Laden 1 year before the attack on the World Trade Center. And I said, you got to go after bin Laden. It was in my book. And very few people want to say that, but it was in my book. You know that, I think. You've actually talked about it. But if they would have listened to me, they would have taken out bin Laden, and you wouldn't have had the World Trade Center tragedy.
Yeah, this is certainly going.
Did you know that? I predicted bin Laden.
I learned something every day.
No, but did you hear that?
Well, I didn't now. I just heard it right now.
No, I wrote a book. It was 1 year before the attack that the book came out, and it talked about, there's a whole page, a whole section dedicated to a guy named bin Laden who's a bad guy who you have to take out.
So, I'll get the book. But right after the election, he told me, I'm going to clean up our backyard. Now, this was before he took office. This is one of the president's priorities, is to make sure that people in our backyard, narco-terrorist states, will not continue to kill Americans without the number of people that will be alive today because Venezuela will be in different hands is going to be tens of thousands. This is something to be celebrated, whether you like him or not.
Not just Venezuela. It's what's coming out of Venezuela in the form of ocean-going and Gulf going and sea-going boats. Every time we knock out a boat, and we've done a lot of them, we did 3 over the last few days. They're very rare now. You don't see too many of them.
Hard to recruit.
But drugs by sea are down 97%. Think of that. And now we're going to stop them by land too. The land is easy. We had to do the sea before we did the land because it just works out.
Yeah, you were just talking about the land, but it sounded like
And by the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it. But unfortunately, the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
I remember one time you actually, speaking of Mexico, I asked you about Claudia Sheinbaum, and you told me at one point you had offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to combat drug trafficking there. Is that something you have
I like
spoken to her
Claudia.
about?
I think she's a terrific person. I would say every single time I talk to her, I offered to send troops.
And she's just not willing?
She's concerned. She's a little afraid. The cartels are running Mexico. Whether you like it or not, it's not nice to say, but the cartels are running Mexico.
De Petro el sábado.
I spoke with President Petro on Saturday, and I spoke with President Sanchez of Spain. He contacted me, I spoke with him, and from there this joint position emerged, which essentially recovers the position that Mexico stated on Saturday. And yesterday there was a meeting of CELAC foreign ministers, and I understand that today and tomorrow there will continue to be meetings. Tomorrow there is a meeting of the OAS, and this vision that it should not be by force, but always through dialogue and understanding. We are not planning a call. There is coordination, there is collaboration with the government of the United States, as we have said, without subordination. There are 4 principles that it is very important for you to know. We put them on a slide, which established the understanding with the United States that was reached with the Secretary of the Department of State of the United States government. This collaboration and coordination is based on this understanding. In that document, these 4 principles are established and are recognized by both countries. Respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, shared and differentiated responsibility. What does this mean? That each of us is responsible in our own territory. We coordinate, we collaborate. There is even information that the United States government or United States agencies provide us for operations. In Mexico, there is intelligence cooperation. I would say it in 2 senses. The first, the natural resources of any state or nation are part of the sovereignty of nations, and it is the people and their governments who must define how these natural resources are used. That is always our position. Now, on the other hand, as I said in the document, if the objective that we believe is positive for the whole continent, from Canada to Patagonia, including the Caribbean, is to strengthen the continent as an economic bloc. Our vision is that it is not through force nor through the vision of a single state, but through cooperation for the development of all the states that make up the continent. Not only the North American Free Trade Agreement, which we have always defended as the best way to compete with Asian countries, particularly China, but it must be expanded to greater cooperation with the entire continent. That would give enormous economic strength to Latin America and in general to the entire American continent, including North America, the United States and Canada. Those are ways of speaking by President Trump, and I do not believe in an invasion. I do not even believe that it is something they are taking very seriously. But we state it he, Donald Trump, has said it several times in the calls we have had. There have been almost 14 calls, if I remember correctly. On several occasions he has insisted that the United States Army could enter Mexico, and we have said no very firmly. First, because we defend our sovereignty. I have said it in different ways, but Mexico is a free, independent, and sovereign country, and, in the face of any intervention, the people of Mexico will remain united. Our anthem says it, and that is how it is. People defend the independence and sovereignty of Mexico by an overwhelming majority. There are very few who seek intervention from outside, and I do not consider that there is a risk. Thank you. And in the relationship with the United States, we are neighbors. We are trading partners. There are 40 million Mexicans in the United States, and we must always seek a good relationship. Without giving up our principles, but not seeking confrontation, rather always a good relationship for the good of Mexicans, here and there. Always. That is why now that we have experienced, well, for almost a year now, tariffs and other issues. We always say keep a cool head, because one has to have resolve, temperament, yes, but also composure to maintain and always seek a good relationship. We are not going anywhere, we are neighbors forever.
Económica enorme.